porous environment. Unlike soft zoning or WWPN zoning, it actually filters frames to ensure that only authorized zone members can communicate. However, it lacks one significant advantage of WWPN zoning. The zoning configuration must change if the source or the target is relocated across ports in the fabric. There is a trade-off between ease of management and the security provided by WWPN zoning and port zoning. Apart from zoning and landmassing, additional security mechanisms such as port binding, port lockdown, port lockout, and persistent port disable can be implemented on switch ports. Port binding limits the number of devices that can attach to a particular switch port and allows only the corresponding switch port to connect to a node for fabric access. Port lockdown and port lockout restrict a switch port's type of initialization. Typical variants of port lockout ensure that the switch port cannot function as an E-port and cannot be used to create an ISL, such as a rogue switch. Some variants ensure that the port role is restricted to only FL port, F port, and E port, or a combination of these. Persistent port disable prevents the switch port from being enabled even after a So switch-wide and fabric-wide access control is implemented, and logical partitioning of a fabric or virtual SAN is done in this. So this completes the SAN security measures. Now we'll have to see the NAS and the IP SAN security measures, and the monitoring of this will be discussed in the next class. So thank you.
ರಿಮೋಟ್ ಮತ್ತೆ ಇಲ್ಲೇ ಇರ್ತೇನೆ ರೀ.
Good morning, students. So I'll be continuing with the topic. Yesterday I left in between about evaluating a decision tree. So I'll be continuing that today. And today I'm going to introduce even a Bayes theorem, that is the next concept here. Okay. So about this previous concepts which was already covered. Okay, about the decision tree, the algorithm I explained, and one of the example we have taken a data set, right? So if I include a continuous variable into a decision tree, the whole structure of a decision tree is going to change, right? So I have taken one extra attribute which was not there in the earlier case when I explained the decision tree. That is about the duration, phone call duration with the bank person, right? So based on that again decision is going to change. So intention of this is to say that if I include a single variable is going to make a lot of change in the whole structure of a decision tree, right? So, and here is an example that we can even include the continuous variable in as a input to a decision tree. That is what is demonstrated in this particular example. Okay, so hope you understood that how a continuous variable can be handled using decision tree. I can put some condition as this. I can put a condition based on the continuous value, like according to the knowledge or according to the data set available. We can make some threshold value, we can fix up some value, and we can make a decision that if it is lesser than that or greater than that, you are making a decision. Okay. So this test case we have analyzed with whatever the construction tree, whatever the tree we constructed. So according to that we got it as subscribed equal to S. Okay. So this is about the algorithm. I already explained in the previous class how a recursive function of this ID3 is going to work. So in C4 4.5 it is improved version of ID3, right? Where it is going to handle the unknown records also, whereas in ID3 it was not so robust to handle the unknown attribute values, but whereas C4.5 will be able to handle the unknown values, right? So this is about the C4.5, and C4.5 will also address a overfitting problem by applying a pruning method. So pruning concept is another different concept to handle the decision tree here, which is not explained in this particular concept. So we are about construction of a decision tree only. Pruning will come after the construction, right? There are again two methods as I mentioned in the next coming topic. Then CART is another one, another variety of a decision tree which is able to handle a continuous variable as C4.5 handles, right? And it is having a different calculation for the variable Zini. This is different than whatever we have calculated in ID3 or C4.5, right? Then, so I left this in between about the evaluating a decision tree. As I mentioned, it is going to work on the concept of a greedy algorithm. Greedy algorithm means it's going to make a best decision at that position. At that position, till the construction of a particular level, it makes a decision that whatever the available data set is there, it tries to find the good attribute or attribute which is having more information gain and entropy calculated, right? So based on that it makes a decision. So here we need to observe a few of the things to evaluate a decision tree. That is, first thing is whether the split of a tree makes a sense, means whether I should go for a splitting of a tree further. If at all I am going for it, what condition is appropriate? See, in the example of our decision tree, we have taken P outcome with the different values. There are different values, something like failure, unknown, others and success. So what we did is we splitted it into three at one side, that is left side, unknown, failure and others, and success at other side. So on what basis I am making this decision is very important to go further with the next thing. So I need to do some of the validating steps before I make a decision. Then I need to even look at the depth of the node, depth of the tree and the number of nodes in a tree. Right? So which gives me that how many layers of tree I am going to get, how many layers, so what is the depth of a tree I am going to get. It should not lead to a overfitting problem, right? It should not lead to a overfitting problem. Something like, one example they are given, I have some x variable, right? Based on that I am deciding how many, I am deciding the y. So x is my input, y is my output. Based on the x value, I am deciding the y value. Those are the set of input variables, right? And y is outcome variable. So the output variable decision what I am making, it doesn't mean that when I increase more number of inputs, I am going to get a best y value. It's not true every time, right? It depends on the data set again. But according to this graph, what we can see is this blue line indicates that I have some training set of data and this is a test data. Training set data, as I am increasing the x value, see if I have a lesser x value, I am able to make a good result or the calculation of y in a faster way. As I am increasing my input, y value is getting decreased, means the time taken to make a decision is decreasing. So it should not go beyond that, where keep increasing the x value but we are unable to make a decision properly with the y value. So here the training time, it is taking more for the more number of x and it is even taking more time to make a decision, right? So here what this indicates is test cases also increasing as I am increasing the number of input. So I must put some threshold value so that I can make a decision with some minimum number of x values, minimum number of input variables with a good outcome value, right? So this is something like a training data well but predict poorly on unseen data, right? Overfitting model says that I have many in training data, there is a large set of training data, it's giving me a good result in the process of training, but testing is taking more time, right? So this is a type of situation called as overfitting of a data. Now, so for what reason this overfitting may occur? The reason behind this is a lack of a training data or a biased data in the training set. That means I may not be having a proper set or relevant data to train my decision tree, right? Or there may be something like which are not important or not related to a decision making or significant, right? If the data set is not more significant things which I am considering for my training, so it leads to a overfitting. In such cases, whenever we find overfitting, we can avoid overfitting by these two things. One is stop growing the tree early before it reaches to the point where all the training data is perfectly classified. That means, for example, I'm having some 2000 entries in my training. So training set, I'm going to verify that all 2000 must be properly arranged in the tree. It's not necessary that I should keep checking for all the training entry till I reaches to each and everyone's final decision, right? So I have to stop it early before it makes a decision. Something like 80% of training set is giving me a correct result, so I'll just stop it. Something like I have a 10 variables in my list. It's not necessary that all 10 variables or all 10 input attributes I'm going to include in my decision tree. If at all I am able to make a decision only with the 5 or 6 attributes out of 10, then I can just stop it, right? So that is what we want to stop it early before it reaches to a final decision, right? The other way is grow the full tree, just keep constructing a tree as and when it comes by the calculation of information gain and by the calculation of entropy, all those things. Construct a complete tree and then apply post pruning. Post pruning is something like we try to remove or exclude attributes which are not significant. So we are trying to prune that. So this pruning method can be done with the reduced error method, pruning method, or rule based post pruning method. There are two methods for that. So you can apply any of these and you can readjust or reconstruct or prune the decision tree to make a proper decision, right? So that is about the how you can avoid overfitting problem or how you can address overfitting problem. Now, decision tree is computationally inexpensive. It won't take much time as compared to other classification methods like linear or logistic, where we have lot of computation to make a decision. In decision tree, it's not much because we are going to make one decision and moving towards one particular thing, the other calculation is completely left. That's why it is represented in a tree structure manner, right? So, as it is computationally inefficient and it is easy to classify the data, right? It is inexpensive and it is easy to classify the data because of the structure of a tree. Will be able to understand it easily, right? Then it is able to handle both numerical and categorical data. Decision tree is well able to handle numerical data and categorical data, which we already seen in the previous example how it can handle that, and it is going to handle it with the robust with the redundant entries and correlated variables also. It's able to handle both numerical and categorical attributes and robust with the redundant or correlated variables. If my data is very redundant or if it is correlated variables, then my result will be even better result I am going to get from that. So, compared to a linear model, linear regression or the logistic regression, decision tree is a efficient one and inexpensive, you can say. Then, so decision tree works with a regression technique, right? So here one example is given for that, something like I have some parameters to make a decision. This is some classes I decided. If a value, x value, some attribute value I am deciding, if a lambda is lesser than some range and lambda 2 is lesser than some range, then I decide that that is a class E. If a lambda is lesser than lambda 1, some value is lesser than lambda 1 and it is greater than lambda 2, then I am deciding it as a class B. So, this particular thing, how we represent in a linear regression, right, that can be easily representable in the form of a tree structure, right. This is how we used representation of a data on a surface in linear regression or logistic regression, but this can be easily represented with a diagram or a pictorial way. That is, whatever the data test case I am taking, if x1 is greater than lambda 1, it moves towards the right side, and then I will check whether x2 is greater than lambda 4, then it falls into a class E. If not, A case is something like I am going lesser than lambda here and lesser than lambda 2. So, lesser than lambda 2, lesser than lambda 1 falls into a class A. So this is how a tree structure is easy to understand, right? Then a decision tree structure is very sensitive to a small variation in our training data, right? Sensitive to a small variation in the training data. If a small data also changes, it may lead to a overfitting problem, or it may give you to a better result also, right? So even though the data set is same, constructing two decision tree based on two different subsets may result into a very different tree structure, right? So even if the data is same, but what decision I'm going to make while constructing a tree is going to give me a completely different tree structure. If a tree is too deep, overfitting may occur because each split reduces the training data to a subsequent split. Means if I'm making many layers or many depth of a tree, then it may lead to overfitting problem, right? It works robust with the redundant variables and correlated variables. The whole structure of a decision tree, it works better with the redundant and robust data, right? Correlated data. So here, one more point we need to observe is a data set contains irrelevant variable if these variables are accidentally chosen as a splits in the tree. By mistakenly, if I choose any one particular attribute as a splitting attribute, the tree may grow too large and may end up with the less data at every split. Means what I am deciding as class A, class B in the diagram. So it may fall it into something like only 2-3 cases into a particular class if I am making a split as a wrong decision, right? So in such cases, to address this particular problem, what we can do is we can apply feature selection method. Feature selection is something like we are going to eliminate some of the irrelevant variables from the input. So by doing that, we can avoid overfitting problem again. Right? So this decision tree is able to handle the correlated variables, but it is not well suited when most of the variables in a training set are correlated. If most of the things are very correlated, then there is no point of making a decision, because all the variables are giving you the same conclusion or same decision, right? So in that cases, it's not necessary to go for all the variables to be included in the data. So in that case, what happens? It may lead to a overfitting problem again. So if the case is that I am considering more correlated data or variables in construction of a decision tree, then which is leading to a overfitting problem, I can apply a discretization method where I can apply one more extra technique into our decision tree, that is called as randomized swallow method, or we can apply random forest technique with a decision tree. So what this do is, it uses a combining several weak learners for a better classification. Not only a decision tree, I am trying to combine another technique including a decision tree, which will help me to avoid some very much correlated attributes and avoid overfitting problem with that, right? So these are the things we need to evaluate while constructing a decision tree. We have to take care of all these things, right? Now moving to a programming part, how to write or how to construct a decision tree using R programming. So in R programming, to model a decision tree, we have a function called rpart, right? And we need a package called rpart. So here is the way how we include that. This is the way I am including that, and the packages rpart and plot. Plot is to draw a structure, tree structure of that. So I am installing those packages first, rpart, and then I am going to use a rpart function. Okay. So in this example I am considering some input here. The input is about the prediction of a data, or like whether the situation is a cloudy, whether the climate or the surrounding is allowing me to play or not. I have to make a decision on that. So what all attributes I am considering is, I am considering whether I can play or not. The first is going to tell me that yes, no, the categorical data. Outlook, the outside surrounding is rainy or it is sunny or it is rainy, overcast. So 3 different values for the outlook. Temperature, again it is a categorical, it's not a continuous data I am considering. So the temperature is cool, hot, right, cool or mild. So three values for the temperature again. Humidity, normal, high, have 2 values, right. Then I have a next one, next variable, that is wind. Wind is there or not, true or false. Yes, it is there, or yes, it is not there. So these data I am considering in my training set, which is a CSV file. So CSV file looks something like this, which is comma separated data, right. So in this I have 10 entries. The same thing I will be taking into our data frame. I am reading that into a table form. So this is how the table looks like. The first column is play, which is a outcome variable for my decision tree, and outlook, temperature, humidity and wind. These are the 4 input variables I am considering, right. So this is, I am just taking a read table, dt data.csv, header I am printing, header equal to true means I am going to get the title of the column everywhere, separated with a comma in your original file. So I am going to separate all those data which are separated with a comma with some space. So I am printing that play decision. Now summary of this data set. The summary function will give me a overall picture of the data, how many no and how many yes are there for the play. So a play variable is having 3 no cases and 7 yes cases. So overall I have 10 entries in my data set. Then for outlook I have overcast, rainy and sunny. I have entries like 2, 4, 4. Temperature cool, hot and mild 5, 2 and 3. Humidity high, normal 4 and 6. Wind is having a different value, yes or no, true or false. So if it is, there are entries like 3 true entries and 7 false entries, right. So this is all about the summary, like overall idea how the data is distributed in our training data set. Now we are going to include this particular function which is used to construct a decision tree in a recursive way. Recursive partition is a name used here. R part is for recursive partition. I am going to make a partition recursively by applying the decision tree technique. So first parameter in the R part function tells that what is your output variable and what are the input variables you are providing. My output variable is play versus these are the input variables, outlook, temperature, humidity and wind, right. So this is my input variable. Then method equal to class, that means I am applying a classification here. Data, what I want to give as the input is play decision, which I already taken into a play decision table. So that I am giving a input to this. Control equal to R part control, minimum split is 1. Even if a single data coming into a split, so you can go ahead for the split. This is some more like you can control the structure of a tree, right. So R part dot control function will tell that whether you need to stop extending or splitting with some minimum number of entries into a split. Something like I am taking here 1 because I have very less entries in my training set. Only 10 entries are there. So it's obvious that 1 may fall into one particular split. If it is something like 2000, in that cases I can it's not a good decision to make min split equal to 1, because if I say min split equal to 1, I may get around thousands of leaf nodes, right? That's not a good way of constructing a decision tree. You understood, right? So this is to control. As I mentioned, overfitting problem may lead sometime because of not making a proper decision on the split. So this is an important factor to be considered while calling a function. So as the training data is very huge, you can just decide that 10% or 20% of your whole data can be a minimum split. Okay. Then the parameters for the split is something like, it is considered based on the information, based on the values in the split, right? So that is what is given here in this paragraph completely. Sorry, one more thing. Here information is nothing but I am considering the information gain to decide about the attribute, right? Now, summary fit. Once I call that function, the tree is constructed, right? Once I invoke this function, fit is a variable which is holding that decision tree. The whole function, which includes that this is a input data, I am using a classification, I am mentioning that how many minimum split I can have and what are the input variables, what are the output variables. So with this, when I execute it successfully, fit variable is going to hold that decision tree, right? So now I want to print a summary of the fit, to produce a summary of a model built from a function, right? What all information I get when I execute this fit is, again I just request you that this particular part you can refer from the textbook, which is not very visible here in the presentation, right? So when I am executing this, a node is created, right? Okay, this function is ending here. I am going to get some figures and facts. Okay, let me start with this. The overall class count. The overall class count says that how many S and how many no's are there. There are 3 no and 7 S entries are there in the whole data. That is 30% of no, 70% of S cases. Then I'll be further having a 2 left side nodes and 3 right side nodes for the root node. Okay. Now the primary split is taken with the temperature. The first thing I am considering as temperature as my input. Okay, let me go in detail with this. Yeah. Node 1, there is a first node. Node 1, that is the first node where 10 observations I have, and I am deciding that yes and no cases. So some are going towards the left and some are going towards the right side of the root node. Then second node is node number 2, second node. In that second node I have 3 observations. See, there it has mentioned 3 is going towards the left and 7 is going towards the right. So in this 3 observation, the class count is 2 are going towards the left and 1 is going towards the right. Right sun is 1 and left sun is 2. So where it is saying that 4 entries goes to this and 5 entries goes to this. Okay. Then node 3, 7 observation towards the right side of your root node. Okay, I will be displaying that once again, the tree structure. Try to understand these values. Node 3, that is the third node in a tree structure. Root node, left and right. Right side of the root is having 7 entries. In that 1 is yes and 6 are no. So this is the probability calculated for the right side node. Node number 4, I have 2 observations, which is a leftmost node of the root node. So these figures, these values you can find in the tree structure here. right? First root node is based on the temperature. 3 is going towards this and 7 are going towards this, right? With a temperature equal to mild, temperature equal to cool or hot. If a temperature is mild, again I am checking the second parameter, that is outlook equal to sunny or outlook equal to overcast, right? So here it is split into 2 and 1. So I am taking 2 and here it is 1. All 2 entries are of no class and 1 entry of S class, right? So when I am finding that 6 plus 1 plus 1 plus 2, this is all 10 training data are divided at the leaf node, right? So here I consider one more parameter, that is wind. Temperature, outlook, wind I consider, and lastly I am making a decision that whether it is possible to play or not, it's true or not. Yes? So this is how the tree structure is constructed using a function called rpart. Now I am going to check for this. This is a test case I am doing. What data I have is outlook equal to rainy, temperature equal to mild, humidity equal to high, and wind equal to false. This is my new data. Okay, let's check with the tree. Outlook equal to rainy. So outlook is a second parameter to make a decision. So what is the first parameter I considered is temperature. Temperature equal to mild. So I am going towards the left side of it. Temperature equal to mild. Outlook equal to rainy, right? So outlook equal to overcast and sunny. So rainy is not included. So I think it is missing somewhere. I have to check where it is going to fit, right? Let me go through this. Outlook equal to rainy. Yeah. Note that this training set does not contain this case. In my training set, if you look at the data, look at this content from your textbook, right? There is no such case where it is rainy and the temperature is mild. Rainy, cool, rainy, cool, rainy, cool, right? There is no combination of rainy with mild temperature, right? So in such cases, your decision tree will not be able to make a proper decision. That's why it is told that your training data set should be strong enough to make a decision, right? So, okay, yeah, rainy, mild, high, false, this particular thing is not possible because in my training set I have not included the particular case, right? Then we can use a predict function to generate a prediction from the fitted whatever the object we created. So here I am taking the same new data and list, right? Parameter type is a character strings. This is something like I am creating a vector to predict, right, different values using a predict function. Then with this, some probability of a class is calculated, may not be exactly but with some probability. So the probability class says that, the probability classification says that this particular entry, that new data whatever I have taken, rainy, mild, high and false, is going to say that play equal to no. It is going to fall into play equal to no, right? So prediction function can be used with the concept of probability or with the classes here, right? So when I am using classification, it clearly says that there is no possibility of that. If I am saying probability, it is going to give me a probability result for the new data what I want to check with the things, right? So this is all about decision tree concept. Hope you are clear with decision tree concept till now. And there is a program, like this particular program is there for your lab assignment. You can execute and you can run the program. As an output, you will be getting a same tree structure what you got here. This particular thing you will be getting as the output in R programming. Okay. Now, moving to the next concept of this, I'll just give an introduction about the naive-Bayes classification here. Naive-Bayes classification works with the probability concept, right? So, this particular algorithm is found or invented by one of the mathematician called Thomas Bayes. So, it is named based on his name itself. So, naive-Bayes classification, it assumes presence or absence of a particular feature of a class is unrelated to the presence or absence of the other features. Means, if something is missing, some data is missing, it tries to assume some values to that missing data or missing feature and it tries to classify. So, one particular thing, example what they given is, an object if I consider to classify based on the shape, right, based on the color and based on the weight. If at all I take a object which is a spherical in shape, color is yellow and the weight is less than 60 grams, then it is going to predict with a probability that it is going to identify it as a tennis ball, right. So, how exactly this Bayes theorem works, we are going to see in detail further, right. So, this is how one particular example of the Bayes theorem concept is mentioned. Now, generally this Bayes theorem works better with the categorical values, right. It can even work with the continuous variable also. It is not that only with the categorical value, it works both with the categorical and continuous value, but preferably it is applied to a categorical variable. So, there are different ways to convert continuous variable into a categorical variable, that is called as discretization of a continuous variable. Discretization is something like you are making a discrete part of a continuous variable and giving a particular category of each class. Something like, one example is given, if I am considering input as income as my input, income cannot be a categorical, means as an input I am taking it as a continuous variable which is a number or a figure, right. So, that can be converted as, if it is lesser than 10,000 income, I can say it as low income. If it is between 10,000 to 50,000, I can say it is working class, 50 to 1 lakh middle class, and more than 1 lakh I can say it as upper class. So, now whatever the number I make a entry in my table, I can convert that continuous values into a categorical values, right. So, I am making a category of low income, working class, middle class and upper class. So, like this I can apply wherever it is a continuous data, I can convert that into a categorical data and apply the Bayes theorem. So, that particular method is called as discretization of a continuous variable. Okay. Now, so this Bayes theorem concept completely works on a probability concept. It works with the probability concept. So, here whatever the output or the class I decide, it is all because of the probability score what that particular value is going to take. So, we need to understand how exactly the probability concept is used in a Bayes theorem and how you are going to get a score, probability score of a particular test cases, right. That we are going to see in detail about this in the further classes. So, generally this Bayes theorem concept is applicable in a case as fraud detection, right. and it is even applicable for the email segregation, something like I want to detect spam emails, right? For that also we are applying a Bayes theorem to filter the spam mails, right? Such cases, this concept of probability or the concept of naive-Bayes classifier is more applicable in such domains. Okay. Now moving to the Bayes theorem concept. Bayes theorem concept works on a conditional probability. The conditional probability of an event C occurring, given that event A has already occurred, is denoted as probability of C when A has already occurred, which can be found a formula as this: probability of C, event C, when A has already occurred, right? Then I am going to find the probability of A and C together divided by the probability of occurring A. So this is same concept of conditional probability from mathematics, right? There is no change in that. When I reframe this particular thing, I am just putting a formula for A intersection C. It can be written as this, something like a probability of finding occurring of A when C has already occurred and the probability of occurring C. So this particular thing is called as Bayes theorem. C is nothing but, it's not a single thing, there is a set of classes in that, and A is observed attribute. One particular attribute, we call it as observed attribute. This concept is called as Bayes theorem, right? So mathematical terms here, Bayes theorem, something like a Bayes theorem is significant because quite often probability of C occurring when A has occurred is much more difficult to compute than calculating A when C has occurred and the probability of C from the training set. So by Bayes theorem, this problem can be solved something with this example, Bayes theorem concept, right? So let us consider this. One particular example is a John files a flight. John flies frequently and likes to upgrade his seat to first class, right? He wants to upgrade his seat to first class. He has determined that if he checks in for his flight at least 2 hours early, right, the probability of that he will get upgraded is 75%. See, this is a situation that a person called John flies frequently, means he travels by flight frequently, and usually he goes on spot and get the ticket. So in that cases, he want to make a prediction with a probability concept that what is the chance that he can upgrade to a class 1, right? So here what they say is, if at all he reaches to a airport 2 hours early, there is a possibility that he may get upgrade with a 75%. Otherwise, the probability that he will get an upgraded is 35%. If at all he doesn't reach 2 hours early. With his busy schedule, he checks in at least 2 hours before his flight is only 40% possibility. The possibility, like according to his schedule, what he can make out is, there is a 40% possibility that he can reach 2 hours early. Other 60% it is not possible, right? So suppose John did not receive an upgrade on his most recent attempt, what is the probability that he did not arrive 2 hours early? This is what the question or the prediction I need to make using this Bayes theorem classification. So the events here are, take C as John arrived at least 2 hours early. Means the first event what I am considering is, he is going to reach 2 hours early to the airport. So So I am considering this as C. Then A is John received an upgrade. The possibility, if he reaches, then he may get upgrade to class 1. Then not C is this, he did not arrive 2 hours early, and the complement of that, he doesn't receive the upgrade, right? Now John checked in at least 2 hours before is only 40% of the time. So probability of C is 4%, that is 0.4, and not reaching there is 0.6, right? Probability of C, probability of not C, 40% and 60%, right? Similarly, the probability that the John received an upgrade, it's already mentioned that it is something like 35%, right? Upgrade given that he did not arrive 2 hours early, he has not reached 2 hours early, then there is only a possibility of 35%. So getting upgraded is A, already mentioned in the above statement, right? A event is telling that John received an upgrade. Now I am saying that John received an upgrade when he did not arrive, so complement of C. So I am taking a probability that A when C has not occurred is 35%, not getting upgraded when not arrived 2 hours early is 65%. The probability that John received an upgrade, now I want to check the probability of this. P of A, the probability of upgrading is when he gets upgraded and the situation is that he has reached 2 hours early. Getting upgraded when he has not reached the 2 hours early. So this formula is replaced, right? This is a probability formula, you already know that. So P of C into P of A when C has occurred. Similarly, I am just replacing the formula with this. I am putting all those values. P of C is already calculated. P of C is 0.4. P of A by C, P of A by C is 75%. Not having C is 35, sorry, not C is opposite to that, that is 60%. P not having C is 35%. So overall the probability is 51%. What is that probability? Receiving an upgrade is only 51%. Then the probability that John did not receive is opposite of this. That is 1 minus A of 49% of possibility, right? So here John did not arrive 2 hours early given that he did not receive the upgrade is shown here. He did not receive an upgrade when he did not arrive on time. So the formula when you put, there is a possibility that if he don't reach on time, then he is not going to receive an upgrade with a 79% you can see, right? So this is how the Bayes theorem concept is generally applied to such cases. Now considering another example here, right? Probability that patient carries a disease based on the result of the lab test. Whether the patient is having a disease based on the lab test, assume that the patient named Mary took a lab test for a certain disease and the result came back positive. Okay, positive. A result has come after the lab test. The test returns a positive result in 95% of cases in which disease is actually present, and it returns a positive result in 6% of the cases in which a disease is not present. So here what they are saying is 95% of correct test is done, means disease is present and they are saying present. Sometimes 6% of results are saying that even if it is not present, they may say it as, sorry, even if it is present, they may say it as not present. So for 1% of the entire population has this disease, what is the probability that the Mary actually has the disease? Okay, this is another case what we are considering here. So when you analyze, let's analyze one more time. We are taking a test for a particular patient, right? What they say is positive result in 95% of the cases in which disease is actually present. That means how many people are going out of them, when disease is there, they are predicting or they are giving the result as disease is there. But it returns positive result in 6% of the cases in which disease is not present. So some entries are there where disease is not there, but still they are saying that there is a disease. And 1% of the entire population is having this particular disease. With this particular condition, we have to find the probability that what is the possibility of having a disease by Mary. So again the same concept what we applied over there will be applied here. C is having a disease, A is testing it as a positive. So these are the figures which are given in the description. I am applying and trying to find that what is the possibility that testing is positive. The possibility is 6.8%, you can see, right? Then I am trying to find that probability having a disease given that the Mary has positive test result. So the probability says that 13% is possible, right? Having a disease given a positive test result only is 13%. This result indicates that the lab test may not be a good one. The likelihood of having a disease was 1% when the patient walked in the door, and only 13.79% patient walked out, which would suggest that further test. It may suggest for the one more test to decide or to confirm about that. So such cases we are going to apply a Bayes theorem concept. Okay. Similarly, again with the same bank details, we are considering that whether to apply subscribe or not subscribed. So same thing you can apply for the Bayes theorem. Now about the classifier thing, I will be discussing this in the coming class, how a naive Bayes classifier works in detail, right? We are going to see the complete working of a Bayes classifier with the same example of bank details, bank marketing details, a data set with 2000 entries. We are trying to make a classification here. Okay, that will be explained in the next coming class.